Today, you are likely to hear a great number of background noises because my mum has been signed off work sick. My sister is home with Floss because Floss is poorly. My father is currently in the living room on what is usually a settee but is currently his sick bed. And we have a tiny Jack Russell scampering about the place and making me regret that we ever got laminate flooring. Hi everyone, my name is Charlie and today I did not iron this shirt and I'm going to be talking about nothing in particular. I did plan on recording yesterday. You're actually seeing second day hair here. This is hair that hasn't had anything done to it today. It looks like it needs a good wash and isn't as wild as it could be. So this is what we're dealing with. I'm afraid I would apologise, but I'm not sure I care enough anymore. Apart from taking the dog out on walks and going to work, which has been an experience. The first week back we did rather well. Well, we did as well as we would do on a normal pre-circumstances week. Last week we had a good week too. This week I have been informed things have dropped off exponentially. But apparently that's the way across the country, isn't it? That everyone has settled back into routine and isn't really going out as much. And I think it's because everybody had this idea that they'd be going out and everything would be spectacular and it'd be different and it would be some sort of experience, as though every single shop was going to change something and cater for you, and it was going to be a party and everywhere would be personal shoppers and chatting with you. And it's not that at all. It's just we're going to work, we're doing our jobs, and you're coming in as customers and doing your job, really. So I think that there's been some disappointment there that it's not as show busy or glamorous as they'd expected shopping might have turned into in 2021. I have had, for the most part, some normal conversations with people. I have done 2 days on the till now, and I don't really particularly care to be on the till. It's just the way things have worked out. I have been enjoying my days in the back, steaming and getting stuff priced and that sort of thing. It's where I much prefer to be. It's just work, isn't it? Everyone keeps saying to me about the fact that we're back and aren't you glad to be back? And I say, well, I was kind of living my best life. I was writing every day, I was reading, I was going out on walks, and I was getting paid to do so because I was furloughed. Now, this isn't how we're supposed to behave, I know, and we aren't necessarily supposed to look on the bright side of life anymore, and we're all supposed to be dismal and gloomy, but I can do that myself without having to think about work and anything else. I don't, there's a lot here to make a person sad without thinking about the fact that we were supposed to be all stuck at home. Last time we spoke, I think I'd mentioned that I'd finished writing the next chapter of Royally Doris. Well, I finally showed it to my mother, and after about 5 pages, she said, "This isn't funny, it's sad," and by the end of it, she was crying. So it seems that I've written a funeral really well. Spoilers. I've been debating whether to show you this next thing, but I'm going to. This is a stack of magazines, and they are all periodicals and literary journals that I have been gifted by my friend Joy. And I did originally do a second-hand book haul, but whether that ever sees the light of day, I don't flaming know at this point. I'm still at that strange place where I record the video and then the video ends up being about 20 minutes long, and I just think, that's going to take so long to edit, and I don't want to do that. I want to sit in my corner and drink tea and read and write. I am not ready to return to actually trying to be some sort of functioning human being yet. So I have 4 copies of The North. These are all currently sprawled out across my room because I needed a box to send some books to Emily of Nobel Novels, and I had to use my poetry box for that. Then, if you didn't know, I'm a member of the Society of Authors because I'm an author. Well, actually, some people don't like me to call myself an author because I'm bringing out my own books. So what would you say I am? I'm a writer with a tendency to publish his own works, but either way that meant I could join the Society of Authors, and because of that they send me a copy of their magazine, The Author, and I've done so since spring 2019 when I first joined, and I currently have 9 editions of it that I haven't read yet. In fact, I believe that my name is actually in the back of this, telling everyone that I am now a member. Shall we just see if this is correct? Yep, there I am, Charles Heathcote. I've definitely missed all of the what's on things from there, but I've got them to read. I'm showing you all these because I'll say in a second. And then I've only got 3 here, but I have more editions of the Rialto because the Rialto is, to me, probably one of the esteemed poetry journals to try and get in, and every time I've entered I've been rejected. I did get longlisted in their nature writing competition maybe 8 years ago, but some of my favourite poets are in here, and as with all poetry journals and things of that ilk, I acquire them to see whether there are any poets I like, and if I find poems I like, I then go in search of the poets to find out if they have any journals out. Then Joy gave me all of these copies of the Poetry Review, which are these, and then some extraneous poetry journals that she had. Now they are currently taking up tons of space in my room. I don't read them because I think of using my reading time to focus on novels and stuff for this channel. And I'm wondering whether, because I'm feeling the slightest bit obligated to creating some sort of content, whether anyone would be interested in me recording a video or a vlog in which I go through and read every single one of these magazines and tell you whether there's anything worth looking at in there. Is that something you'd be interested in? Let me know. I tell you, I really do not like recording when there are people at home because they are never quiet when I need them to be quiet. They can be quiet all the other times, but as soon as I want to try and get something recorded, they immediately think, actually, now's the time to make more noise than I have ever made in my life. It's a big culture shock, really, because in April, there was, well, at the start of April, nobody was here because they were lambing. And so I would get up in the morning and I would sit down with my cup of tea and I'd get work done. And I suppose that I took it for granted that they weren't going to be here. So I could have probably been recording every single one of these days and got a huge backlog of content ready. At the same time, I'm on the wrong side to show you. I was reading The Mirror and the Light by Hilary Mantel, and I was reading The Goldfinch as well. Exceptionally long books, and I was taking time to do that. Obviously, the dog came along, so other things took precedence over YouTube this month, and I have no problem with that. You might, but I have taken a back seat, really, and decided, you know, we're all here having fun, and it's something that I think we continually forget when we're part of this platform, and we need to remind ourselves, actually, if we aren't a jobbing YouTuber or booktuber, then it's perfectly okay to take a step back and say, do you know what? I have a life and I'd like to dedicate some time to living that life, because this isn't a life in front of a camera. I enjoy coming and chatting to you, and I enjoy the interactions I have with other people, but for the most part we aren't in and out of each other's lives, in and out of each other's pockets, as much as you would be somebody you know physically. That sounds weird. In real life, that also sounds weird. What I'm trying to say is, YouTube, this bit here, can end up being the secondary part of it, because you can make connections with people outside of BookTube and chat with them all the time, that you actually end up forgetting the main BookTube part. I don't know where I was going with that, but basically I took a step back and I feel like I didn't use the time wisely, because now people are at home all the time. My mother's been signed off for 6 weeks, so we're only 1 week into that, which means there is always going to be someone here for at least 5 weeks. And my dad only goes up the field until about 10 o'clock in the morning, and then he doesn't come back, and then he doesn't go back, so he's here from 10 in the morning. I don't know, I could go back to driving to work exceptionally early and recording in the car park. It's a bit of a nightmare, if I'm being honest. Hopefully, you'll be getting a video about the reread of the Goldfinch, because I have some thoughts that are somewhat different to what I thought 6 years ago, and I'll probably be going into the reasons why I considered unhauling this at the start of this year, why I didn't unhaul it, and why I am probably going to be getting rid of this book upon my reread. If anyone else has read The Goldfinch, you can probably guess what my issues are currently. And I'm reading another Elizabeth Taylor, which is in a summer season. This is probably as funny as Mrs. Palfrey at the Claremont. This book is from later in Elizabeth Taylor's career, and so there is more of this pathos and humour that I felt in later books that I have previously read. Here we have the character of Kate, who has married Dermot, who is much younger than her, and indeed is perhaps not closer in age to her children. Well, he is closer in age to her children, but basically people wonder whether he's a bit of a fortune hunter, whether he's just after her cash. Then someone from her past is going to come back, who she might still have a bit of a thing for. And so far, we've had a lot about the different generations and how they think, how Kate is different from her husband, who is different from her children. Kate struggles with communicating with her children now they're teenagers. The teenagers getting up to stuff that Kate doesn't know about. Honestly, still my problem is these flowery covers that, whilst they are very beautiful, they don't do any justice to what's actually within the pages, which is this, I would say, very British tone in the fact that there's a lot going on beneath the surface, but there is also a bit of wit and wry humour there that I greatly appreciate. And this is perhaps closer to the top of my rankings in terms of Elizabeth Taylor's books, but I have yet to read an Elizabeth Taylor that I have disliked. To go back to talking about writing again, because I like making these videos that are all over the place, I have planned the next 2 chapters of the final Doris book, which means I have 1 chapter left to plan, and then I will go into writing them, but that could be another 3 months worth of writing. It seems strange that after all these years I'm finding it not difficult to write Doris, but I feel a great want to get it right, because this is going to be the last Doris book. Indeed, I've been thinking a lot about the first part, and I finished the 3rd chapter of the book months ago, and, well, last year really, and when I did that, I knew that the 3rd chapter wasn't right. And now, I think the issue is the telling of those first 3 chapters, because something that I've done with this, the second part, is that that's written almost as though it is its own novella, with themes and plot points that link to the entire narrative. And I think that I need to go back and I need to work on the format and the way the story is told, and perhaps move the story that is told in the 3rd chapter into the 2nd as because I feel like it'll work more as some sort of inciting incident, and have the final part of chapter 2 be the actual final part of the first part. I tell you, it's a lot of map making and cartography in my head. And people do keep asking me about the final Doris book now, because I've been talking about it since 2017, when I released Indisputably Doris, and I thought that the next book would be this one. And I ended up writing the children's book, and then An Heir to Murder, and then I wrote Doris Ahoy, and An Heir to Murder are now out. This is very much a culmination of work over the last 10 years. I have now been writing this character for 10 years, and I'd hoped to have this final book out last year. But also, it seems fitting to say that I spent my 20s writing with Doris. I do look forward to putting the story to bed now, and I think that the story I'm telling, I definitely did not have the skill to do so years ago. Maybe I don't even have the skill now. This could be the worst thing I ever did right, but it doesn't feel like that. It's strange how these sorts of videos have changed, because when I first started them, it was going to be a lot about my thoughts of the time and what was going through my head that week. And naturally, this week, things that I wanted to talk about, such as the artificiality of the internet and my hair, just went out the window today, and I ended up talking more about my reading and my writing. And I think that that's what happens all the time now when it comes to me creating any sort of video, is that I'm so wrapped up in this whole world of writing and reading and not doing much else that everything that I want to talk about just gets forgotten. And then I question whether it was ever really that important to begin with. I will say that I went up to Macclesfield Forest on my own for the first time yesterday. I never made the drive myself because I always thought that I could never remember the route. And it felt like a lot of tight country lanes that were a bit windy. And since the current events have happened, there's been a lot more people there than there were before. But yesterday I woke and I decided that I was going to take Sally for a walk. I decided to bite the bullet and drive there. And do you know what? It was fine. There weren't many people on the roads, and when I got to the forest, I had it to myself. I parked up because there was nobody else there, and I went for the short route because that's just me, and I thought I'd have a lot to get done, and I didn't do any of the things that I had planned. It felt like an achievement because I'd driven up there on my own, that I'd managed to get there when nobody else was there, so I got the forest to myself, so it felt almost blissful that I didn't have to see people. I was finished before 9 o'clock when other people were just starting to arrive, so it felt like I had an entire workday ahead of me. Naturally, that didn't actually happen, and I ended up tidying up my bed. That's currently a mess again because I removed all of the books that I have stacked all over here, and I didn't get any writing done. I didn't get any reading done, and I didn't record the videos I had planned, but I did watch a fair amount of BookTube yesterday, and please go and look at my other folks' videos playlist because I'm still not commenting on some people's videos because for whatever reason they seem like brilliant human beings and I don't want to embarrass myself, but they're there. In terms of books, I recorded a second-hand book haul last week based on books that I'd been sent by friends and which I'd acquired from the charity shop, only to then go into work and get given 31 books, some of which were bind-ups, which amounted to 38 books in the end. I acquired 47 Anthony Trollops in October, and I keep talking about them in every video because they're behind you. I have had to take all of the DVDs off the case that you usually stand on and replace them with my paperback books that I haven't read yet. And I know that there's more coming because I want to acquire all of the Elizabeth Taylors, and I'm only going to buy one every time I finish, but I only have 2 left to read. So this is this month's. A Game of Hide and Seek is next month's. So I really need to be, well, I don't need to, but I will be acquiring one more for June. And I'm just going to run out of space. Oh well. I'm going to disappear because I've done everything I said I was going to do, which is to talk about nothing for nearly 25 minutes, and I've got to edit this down, so do let me know if you'd like to see a video of me talking about the content of those magazines, just so that I can get them out of the way and feel like I'm doing something worthwhile. What you're reading, what you're writing, what you're watching, what you're listening to, you know, all that fun stuff. How are you? Let me know in the comments. Have you had any exciting walks recently? Honestly, in terms of like socialising at the moment, I'm still at the point where I could happily go and disappear and live on a narrowboat and never speak to anybody ever again. It's just the fact that you want to have very good Wi-Fi or a bath. And I'm pretty sure you can't put Radox in the canal. I hope you got something out of this video. Even if it was sheer boredom. I hope you did it whilst you were painting your nails, so it means you couldn't even click off. What the heck is this? And until next time, that is